Hey there, Groovesters, Groove Stars, Ridgely here. Super excited to have with me a dear friend, been down the entrepreneurial journey for a long, long time, the author of the 10 Golden Rules and the founder of the company by the same name, 10 Golden Rules. Jay Berkowitz, welcome, welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. This is great. What an honor.
I'm excited, man. I know. Let's just go for everybody that doesn't know anything about you. Let's go back to the beginning. Were you always an entrepreneur? Did you go down the corporate path first for a little while, make the switch? What caused the genesis of 10 Golden Rules?
No, at the beginning, I was a hockey goalie. But
Okay.
I mean, you said go back to the beginning, but I think I actually learned, people ask me, how come I can stay calm when like lots of shit's flying around the office? And it's like, if you're the goalie and you're the one who's got to stop the puck, and if you don't, your whole team is relying on you, so I learned to be pretty calm. But I came from Canada and I had some great jobs. My first jobs, I was working at ad agencies, and I was really lucky. My first client was McDonald's restaurants. And so we got to do real advertising and marketing with real budgets and, TV commercials and radio and billboards, in-store signage. And I really learned, just got to do a lot of stuff really quickly and real. And also the market tells you if the stuff worked. I really learned about the power of advertising because, if we launched a Happy Meal program, this if and it was a good one and the advertising was good, the stores were packed by Friday at noon. We'd start advertising 6 o'clock Thursday night and start on a weekend, and the market really responded. So I got to do a lot of real advertising and marketing early in my career, and then I went from being working in the agency to working at the client, and I was a director of marketing at McDonald's and then a category manager at Coca-Cola, and worked on crazy things like the worst marketing mistake or the best marketing mistake of all time was New Coke. Then we repeated it, and I worked on New Diet Coke. We screwed up Diet Coke, but that's a longer story, maybe for the next if you invite me back. And then I moved from Canada. I was working in Canada for McDonald's and Coca-Cola to a .com startup in Florida called ediets.com. And it was an online diet company. We grew the company to $60 million in revenue. And we were spending $40 million in advertising and marketing back in 2002 on MSN, AOL, and Yahoo. And for those of you who are, a lot of people now, some of my employees are like barely older than my company, which is amazing to guys like you and me with a few gray hairs. But back in those days, it was before Google. It was, I always joke Google was in beta and Mark Zuckerberg was in high school.
Right.
We were doing $40 million worth of banner advertising, and the way you used to get on the internet back then is you'd go to AOL or Yahoo and you'd log into your email and you'd check your email and you'd see banner ads while you're checking your email. And then you'd go to, Yahoo Sports or Yahoo Entertainment or AOL Fashion or whatever, and you'd see more banners throughout your journey. And we would show 8 to 10 banners every week to any women on those networks because our product was 92% female. And we did a ton of advertising and marketing in the digital space. And now I had some strategic advertising and marketing and some digital. And I was asked to speak at the Direct Marketing Association. And I wrote a presentation called The 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. And that became this book over my shoulder and my brand and my webinar, my company, my podcast. And I did this presentation and people came up to me and said they wanted to hire me as a consultant. So we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We've been doing that for the last 20 years.
Congratulations, man. So for those of us who have never, ever been in a big, big company, what was that transition like to go from Coca-Cola, from McDonald's to Coca-Cola to big money spending, et cetera, to running your own shop? I mean, that could not have been as easy as most people would like to think it is.
Well, I mean, fortunately, I had the experience of working on the agency business, and not all my clients were, McDonald's budgets. A lot of people, we had smaller budgets, and we learned to be very creative and do a lot of guerrilla style marketing. I worked on the Gatorade account, and we did a lot of like events. We did sample Gatorade at events, and we do promotions in stores and signage and stuff. So we didn't always have the big McDonald's, Coca-Cola budgets throughout my career. And then at eDiets, we grew the company to spend $40 million, but we didn't start there. And absolutely, like starting out, and even today, I don't have the huge budgets to market my company. And a lot of what we do, we're a marketing company, so we do a lot of our own marketing. Sure. And we do a lot of guerrilla marketing still. Like trade shows are great, networking's fantastic, and you learn, you get scrappy when you just don't have a budget to assign to an agency.
Yeah, for sure. That's I think something that everybody listening or watching this right now can relate to. It's like, okay, there was a day when there was only one, whoever you are out there, that had an idea and probably didn't have a Coca-Cola budget. So therefore you had to figure out how to get scrappy and what to do there. With that in mind, what do you think are the two most successful, one or two or three the top characteristics of a successful entrepreneur?
Well, you asked about being the only one, and when I started a digital marketing agency in 2003, there probably weren't that many. There might have been 100 or 50, and I had a book. I was very unique at that time, and so as over time it got harder and harder to differentiate ourselves. So we started out, we were a niche agency. And I didn't know, had never heard that term. I didn't know what that meant, but we were digital only. And people were really confused, like, whoa, you guys only do digital? Like you don't do TV and radio? And of course I knew how to do it from my background, but I really built an agency that I was looking for when I was the director of marketing at eDiets. I was looking for someone who was strategic, organized, and understood the digital space. And I realized that it really didn't exist out there. So that's the agency I built, and we were a niche and we were very unique. But then, fast forward 15 years and go into any Starbucks and you'd see, a couple kids sitting in the corner with a Mac, and they were a digital agency. And there was thousands and thousands of competitors who had digital agencies. And so we actually decided to niche down again. So we only work with law firms today. We still have some historical clients, still with us. But we decided to pick a niche, and you've heard the expression, "There's riches in the niches." So long way of getting to answer your question. Like we started out, we were a niche agency. We only did digital, and 15 years later, we decided we were a niche agency. We only do digital for law firms. We specialize in personal injury, but we work with lots of different types of law firms. And by being focused on a niche, you get really, really good at what you do. And I didn't even realize how beneficial it would be for my team, because I don't think I appreciated, Ridgely and I go to all ththese conferences and meet all these amazing people. And I would come back from these conferences like, hey, this is great. We're going to work with a university. And, oh, this is great. We just signed a new client, and it's swimming with dolphins in the Bahamas. And we just signed this new client, and they're building a new development in Miami, and it's going to be a hotel and a condo. And so the team had to figure out how to sell all that different stuff. And they were all different markets, and they were all different media, and they were all different, digital marketing strategies that were going to work. And for me and for you, we've earned the gray hairs the hard way. Like we've learned a lot of strategies and tactics along the way. But for my team, it was always like, oh, great, we're going to sell swimming with dolphins in the Bahamas, right? So it's made our life a lot easier, because we're just focused on the 4 parts of Google, which are local service ads, Google Maps, pay-per-click, and SEO. And there's enough there. There's 4 different expertise and 4 different teams of experts that I have on my team. But that's more than enough to specialize in. And then we get really, really good, because we're doing, we're talking to the same people all day, every day. So it's a long way of saying, focusing on a niche has been hugely successful. And then if you ask for 2 or 3 things, the other thing I would say is, building your brand and your personal brand. And so if you're an individual and you're starting out, I was kind of lucky, and maybe not. Like I saw a presentation by a guy, and he said, think of yourself like a brand. What have you done to put a shine on your brand? Think of your resume like if you were a brand manager, at Coca-Cola, what new packaging have you built on your resume? So, that's where I came up with the 10 Golden Rules brand. When I was asked to speak at a conference, instead of just doing a case study on e-diets, which is actually what they asked me for, I said, I'll give you lots of really good content about our success at e-diets, but I want to create this thing, the 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. I didn't know where it would lead, but it was an intentional personal branding exercise. So, over the last 20 years, I've been building on the 10 Golden Rules brand, the Jay Berkowitz brand, and they're kind of, when you own your company, your brand becomes interlinked. Like for most of us, like our Facebook, our LinkedIn is us at conferences and, with our brand and maybe our family too, but, it's not the majority of I see my brand as linked to my company and what I do. So, everything you can do to build your personal brand, to develop content, to have a calendar of content, distribute content on a regular basis, is kind of that scrappy guerrilla way we talked about earlier of building your personal brand without having a tremendous budget to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I remember having a conversation many years ago with my friend who was a big media guy in South America, in Colombia. Bunch of newspapers, magazines, on TV all the time. And I went to see him and I said, "Hey man, I'm looking at building this thing and what do you think? What is the biggest recommendation you can give me?" And he said, "Look, I don't even hold back on this. I'm going to tell you what the biggest thing you can do to really build yourself. 2 words. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. You know why I'm going to tell you how to do it? Because nobody will do it. People just don't do it because they get lazy. Here are the 2 words: editorial calendar. That's it. What are you going to put out every week to the world so that you begin to build a following of things? And I'm telling you, every Monday I do this. Every Thursday I do this. That's all I do. All I do is, but I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I've told everybody, and nobody does it. And I'm not afraid to tell you because I already know that most people won't do it because it's too much like hard work."
Yeah.
I guess you would agree with that.
Yeah, I use the term calendarized content because if you don't commit, like we've done a webinar every month for 4 years. We've done a podcast every week. We do our marketing around the webinar and the podcast. And so that because it's calendarized, because we know it's, every week is a podcast, every month is a webinar, we've got to get the emails out to announce the webinar. We've got to get the, every time we send an email, we stack our social media. So it goes on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, my personal LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. And people tell me they see me all the time. They see my, "Hey, things must be going great for you. I see you all the time." But it's, it's really just, you said it, I call it calendarized content. You call it editorial content, but, putting it on a regular day of the week, day of the month, and making it happen is really what it's all about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do the same thing. So it's 3 pieces of content a week, every week. It's going out all the time. So I love to ask this question. Can you share with us a large, colossal setback or failure that happened on your business journey? And what did you take away from that? What did you learn from it?
I guess I could think of more, but back in 2008, 2009, it was the last time we got really hit with a major recessionary time. And we had a couple really big real estate clients. Like I mentioned, these guys doing this development with a hotel and a condo. We had other guys selling land, just raw land in the Carolinas. And we had 2 or 3 really big real estate clients and a university that was selling a program that was kind of got killed. And so we lost about $40,000 worth of ongoing recurring revenue in a period of like 2 months. And I remember it was actually like New Year's Day or the second, right at the start of the year. And I was like, holy Junkins, like, we are going, this could even get worse. My business was down significantly, like, how bad could it be? How bad is this recession going to be? And I was like at a low, and I just like could only imagine how bad I was only thinking about how bad it was going to be. And I actually listened to a podcast, and there's an amazing guy, I think you know JB Glossinger, the morning coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to a morning coach podcast, and JB's like, "Hey, it's a new year. We got to get going." And some of the most biggest fortunes were built in the recession and in the Great Depression. And if everybody else is moping around and you're fired up, so I was down and depressed for like an hour, and I stumbled on JB, and he just picked me up by the seat of my pants. And so, that was a lesson that I learned. I hard coded that lesson. And anytime, occasionally we'll lose, a client or two, within a couple of weeks, and it seems like the world is caving in. But if you pick yourself up and just go back at it, sure enough, you sign a small deal and then another deal and build some momentum, and then you're back roaring again. And so, you just, and as a leader of the company, you can't let it get you down, and you can't let anyone else know it's getting you down. And
That's right.
sure enough, it turns around if you have the right attitude and you've got the right pieces in place.
Yeah, and then that thing is a big one, right? As the leader of the company, so no matter how big your company is, there may be a whole bunch of stuff going on that's difficult or challenging, and it's still up to you to be the positive guy, to be that influencer, to be that cheerleader, to be that rah-rah person that's like, "Hey, man, don't worry, we got this. Don't worry, we got this." I had an interesting experience happen to me, man. I was crushing it on the speaking circuit. I mean, just crushing it. It's September. I'm in Nassau in the Bahamas speaking to 30 CEOs. And one of them walks up to me and says, "Hey, do you know who I am?" I said, "Well, I know your name is Heather. It's on your ticket." But besides that, she said, "Well, I run a Canadian event planning association, a company. And we do about 20 big events a year and about 40 to 60 small events per year. And this is one of the best presentations I've ever seen." I said, "Well, thank you very much."
Awesome.
She said, "Well, I'd like to invite you to speak next May. I'm on the board and I can get you a keynote in front of 200 people just like me for the North America Event Planning Association." And
Awesome.
I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You're going to put me in front of people who do 6,000 big events a year and maybe 20,000 smaller ones? Are you kidding?" And I was, okay, that's it. We just hit the mother load. And then COVID hit.
Yeah, I knew what was coming. It was May of 2020, right?
Everything was canceled. But here's the funny thing. When you have that perseverant attitude that you were just talking about, I was sitting in this office right here, and I was like, now that's really kind of interesting. We were going in a direction, and now we're going to go in a new direction. And oh, by the way, if that had gone through, you, Ridgely, would spend the next 25 years without ever being in the state of Florida or on some airplane somewhere because you'd be so booked, you'd never even whatever. And I discovered through COVID that I really like my own yoga studio, my own bed, my own food, and my wife still cared for me. Okay, I think I'm going to stick around. Let's reinvent this thing and take the message to the people through the digital forum as opposed to live and in person. But it was one of those crazy ones, just like you said. You just pick yourself up and go, interesting. Glad I got had my butt handed to me a few times before, because this doesn't even feel all that bad. It's just kind of unique.
Yeah. And so many people picked themselves up and created a whole amazing new thing, and so many people didn't, and they're still dragging their butt around. So
exactly. So talk to us a little bit about mentorship. What kind of a role has that played for you? How important do you think that is?
I mean, getting a great mentor is a game changer, and I've had that opportunity a few times in my career. Right now, I'm a member of a mastermind, and it's called Seven Figure Agency. Mm-hmm. And it's for agencies who are trying to get to seven figure, and agencies who are at seven figure. And seven figure is defined in this group by you have $82,000 or $83,000 a month in recurring revenue. So we encourage each other not to include like websites, which are one off, and you got to, if you design websites, you got to keep selling all the time. But if you help someone with their ongoing marketing, so you want to have $83,000 in recurring revenue is a seven-figure agency. And then a few of us are multi-seven-figure agencies, and we're in a group, an invite-only group called the Titans. So Josh Nelson is the founder of this group, and Josh has been a mentor to me, both through just being a great mirror to he also owns his own multi seven figure agency, and he's gives me feedback on questions that I have, but also he's created this tremendous mastermind. So there's 20 multi seven figure agencies, and we get together and coach each other. So the individual mentor and the mastermind effect has been fantastic for my business.
I bet. I couldn't be a bigger fan myself. And corollary to that, what about personal and professional development? What do you think the value of that is, both for yourself and for your team?
Well, I guess my professional development has been less sort of traditional, but I've invested. You and I met through going to some of the masterminds and groups and conferences, and so I've invested in going to a lot of different, training and conferences and digital marketing conferences and personal development conferences. And we were lucky enough to work with Tony Robbins, and I saw Tony about 8 times over about 3 years, and including my journey started with my business. I walked on fire within the first couple months of my business and went to unleash the power within. So Tony Robbins has been a big part of my personal development, and we worked in the event business, and I saw all the Tony Robbins and T. Harv Ekers and all the great Shark Tank guys and Gary Vaynerchuk, on and on and on, multiple times, because it was a part of our client's business. So I guess without a formal personal development thing, I've done tens of thousands of dollars of personal development, and masterminds have been fantastic. And then for our team, we encourage them to do it. As a matter of fact, we do a book club. Not all the time, but we're right now we're reading What the Heck is EOS? So every week we're reading a chapter of the book, and we're all sharing what we learned. And so we're going to institute EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, for our company. We've been doing it, self-implementing over the last couple of years, and then we're doing a full-fledged starting in January.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, right now I'm reading a fascinating book by Dr. David Rock called Your Brain at Work. And it talks about all kinds of cool stuff about the brain. My favorite thing on that I've discovered so far is why I dislike multitasking. And I learned from this book that Your Brain at Work is because it drains so much energy to be simultaneously split in your brain on many things going on at the same time, that multitasking is actually something that will just wear you out. And I've never liked it, but I never really understood why. And when I start to dive into it and it breaks down the brain and how it's working and what's going on, I'm like, oh, this is good stuff, man. I like this a lot.
Well, I had that one. Our last book club was Eat That Frog.
Yeah, oh, that's a good one. Yeah,
and there's the basic principle is, if you do your 2 or 3 most important tasks first thing in the morning, you've already had a great day. And the most successful people do that. But a lot of the book talks about exactly what you just said, is you pick, that when you pick that one most important task in the morning, you turn off the Facebooks and you turn off the emails and you turn off the ringer on your phone, and you get it done. And then you're not spreading your brain. So I'll get that book for sure.
For sure. It's a good one. Your Brain at Work. Recently, because of reading Your Brain at Work, I flat out just said, okay, wait a second. Why don't I just do it? And I did. And I blocked 8 to 11, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just a big X right through the middle, just to think about the business and to work on it, not in it. No calls, no nothing. It's been great. And I'll tell you another secret side benefit. You wake up on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in my case, and you're like, oh, good, I don't have a call till at least 11. Sweet. And there's this feeling of like, oh, I'm so excited. I get to
do work. I get to do my work instead of someone else's work.
I know, right? Amazing. All right, man. So here's a funny question for you. Taking all the experience that you have today, if you had a time warp button, click, click, and you could go back 20, 25 years and speak to the Jay Berkowitz of 25 years ago about your experience and what you've learned so far. And oh, by the way, this answer is not allowed. Oh, man, I wouldn't change anything. That's not an okay answer. What would you want to say with young Jay based on what you know now?
Well, look, what we know now, obviously, is all these tech companies were tremendously successful. And, I I joke, but in a way, it's kind of a sad joke that I said that Google was in beta and Mark Zuckerberg was in high school because I had an idea for a product that we never built, and it kind of sort of got done in a few different ways, but it's not of its day anymore. But had I when I left eDiets, actually, 10 Golden Rules, the agency was supposed to be developed concurrently with developing an internet product. And we just got so busy with the agency business, and then we were having a lot of fun, and it was a great run. But if I could do it all again, I would have doubled down on the product and built a product, because we all know that if you got it right in the early 2000s, you were building the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the YouTubes, and all of them came after 10 Golden Rules.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So that's what you'd say to young Jay. Hey, man, get more technical, get involved in that.
Well, just get that product done, because if it didn't work, we might have pivoted to whatever did work, and
that's true.
It might have been the $200 billion success story.
That's just a good point. So give us your take on AI. Obviously, it's huge out there. It's a big talk of, especially in the digital marketing space. There's so much conversation going on about AI. What's your thoughts? Young entrepreneurs that are out there looking to grow their companies, how important is AI? What role is it playing for you? Give us a little bit of that.
Well, hopefully everybody's figured out now that ChatGPT is an AI, and that there's, I think, over 200 unicorns, which is billion-dollar valuation companies that are artificial intelligence companies. So we're obviously doing a lot of work in AI for lawyers, and we've done a couple great webinars. You can find all my webinars at the 10 Golden Rules YouTube channel. And if it's easier to find, just scroll to the bottom of 10goldenrules.com and click on YouTube. And we've got some of the top leaders in AI on our webinars. And so there's a ton in each individual business category. Companies have been developing AI for like 10, 15 years. So it's like everybody's hearing about it now, because everything's kind of exploded. And then every company that had technology is like, oh, well, we're an AI company, because they had a little, they tap into OpenAI or ChatGPT's back end to fuel their product, so that they can market themselves as an AI. And that's why there's been such an awareness of this explosion. But, at a very basic level, AI is going to replace all of the rudimentary tasks in every business. It's going to replace, Google has ad buying and ad management for pay-per-click in our business. Google has copyright, or ChatGPT and Jasper AI have copywriting. There's design tools that can design phenomenal images that we're using. Our design team is using for social media. So all of the junior people are more or less being replaced in all these categories. And lawyers, AI can write a demand letter. In accounting, they can do your taxes. My question and maybe concern is, like, where are we going to be 5 or 10 years from now, when all the junior jobs got wiped out by AI, and the experienced people still need to look things over, but 5 or 10 years from now, there's going to be nobody who got 5 or 10 years experience doing the grunt work research on a legal case, or being the junior ad manager on Google Ads, because Google Smart Ads is doing the ad management. So I think my advice to the young person in business is you better embrace these technologies right now, like yesterday, and that just means, like, use stuff, try stuff out, like when you've got your new cell phone, the first time you got an iPhone or something, it was like, oh man, this is confusing, and sure enough, within a couple of weeks it was easy to use. And some of these AIs might take a couple months, but I would definitely go deep on the different technologies in your space, and become the person in your office or your industry who's kind of figured this stuff out, because believe me, nobody's figured it out. And if you invest 3 to 6 months and learn it, then you're going to be the gal or the guy in your office or your industry who's actually ahead of the game. So it's not too late. You're really early in the game. get in there, do it, figure it out, and make it part of your, your work expertise or part of your company's expertise.
Yeah, for sure. Couldn't possibly agree more. All right. Final question for you, but it's an important one. 3 resources that you would recommend to a budding entrepreneur. Could be a book, could be a channel, could be anything you want, but what will be 3 resources and why with each one? What's each one of those going to help them?
3 resources for a budding entrepreneur. Well, I absolutely love podcasts, and what I learned when I got into podcasting is that only 25% of people are auditory learners. And what that means is people would love podcasts, would prefer to listen to an audiobook than read a book. And when I'm working, even if I only have 10 minutes and I've got a deadline, I got to get the slides ready for a meeting, I will take 30 seconds and put some classical music on, because I will work better for those 9.5 minutes. So if you're an auditory learner, podcasts are the go-to. And whatever it is, like I listen to tennis podcasts because I'm a hack tennis player. I listen to digital marketing podcasts. I listen to sales podcasts to learn how to sell, and I listen to my sports teams podcast. But whatever your subject matter expertise that you want to get better at, search for the podcast in that area. And by the way, if you're more of a visual learner, the same thing's available to you now on YouTube. So I'd say, find experts in your subject matter and invest, just subscribe to the podcast. When it pops up, watch it. When the YouTube pops up, watch it. When the podcast, listen to it. Book wise, I could go through about 20 of these books, which are my go-tos, but one popped in my head, which is pretty good for building your business. Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone. And the basic principle is like, do a lot of breakfasts and lunches and dinners with people. And it's a cliche expression, but I've found it to be so true. Your net worth is your network. And I've invested a lot of time in networking over the past 20 years, but really more so over the past 4 or 5 years, and building relationships and doing one-on-one meetings. And I saw Ridgely's email pop up and connected with him, and we did a one-on-one, and here we are doing this. And we've had this 15 or 20-year relationship, and so I can almost anything that my clients need, particularly because I've doubled down on networking in the legal industry. Almost anything they need. If they need to, they're having trouble hiring, I've got a couple. I've got a recruiter who hires partners. I've got a guy who's got a great nearshore operation in Mexico, and they hire the top attorneys in all of Mexico, and they can be your paralegals, and they get paid double what they get paid to be an attorney. And so just building your network makes you an asset, whether you're an individual employee or whether you're an entrepreneur, when you've got the answers for people. You asked for 2 or 3. I guess the third resource would just be, we kind of touched on it earlier, and that's, there's another part to developing content that's a huge benefit. And when you do your Monday newsletter and your Thursday, webinar or podcast series, what I find is I learn so much when I develop content. Mm-hmm. And so having the discipline to say, like each month I'm doing a webinar. So each month I've got to do some slides or put a panel together. But even when I put a panel together, I do the 10 or 15 minutes to lay the foundation for why something's important. And the research and homework I do each month for my webinar gives me, I learned so much about the subject area, even though I'm supposedly an expert. But it's like when I come back to do local service ads or Google Maps or SEO, obviously a lot changes in a year when the year comes around and I'm doing SEO. So what do? Well, I meet with my team. We go through last year's slides. They tell me what's changed in their world. I listen to some of the top podcasts because that's, I'm an auditory learner. So I listen to some of the go-to folks, but I also just I Google and I search in iTunes like SEO podcast or Google Maps podcast or local service ads podcast, and I listen to people share amazing amounts of expertise on a podcast, a lot of secret stuff that they'd never share with you if you asked them the question at a conference or something. So, it's the investment in developing great content that makes me better. So I'd say that's the third one.
Well, I appreciate that very much, man. So final thoughts, final words that you want to share with the entrepreneurs that are out there, they're listening, they're watching, they're taking in everything you've shared with them so far. What would you want to leave them with?
Well, what pops in my head is something that I learned, or I think I coined this, but entrepreneur is a verb. And I had, as we discussed, I started in ad agencies and then went on to some really cushy corporate jobs. But I learned that you're not an entrepreneur or not an entrepreneur. You can learn to be an entrepreneur. And so I was a corporate guy. And you asked that question early on, what's the difference, right? Like, you start out and you're doing a startup with, relatively no budget and relatively little network. I moved here from Canada. I knew almost nobody in the United States. And you've got to learn to entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs build a network. Entrepreneurs build relationships. Entrepreneurs build referring partners. Entrepreneurs create content. Entrepreneurs do thought leadership content, get booked to speak at conferences, write books, right? I could keep pulling them out, right? So that entrepreneuring, the verb of entrepreneuring, makes you an entrepreneur. You're not born an entrepreneur. You learn it from the school of hard knocks. And then the last thought, because you only asked me for one, is Tony Robbins says success leaves clues. So you can fast forward your learning by learning from the experts. And so we've talked about, podcasts and webinars and YouTubes and books. Don't suffer through the school of hard knocks. Find, like Tony Robbins will say, like, he'll read 100, but find the best 10 books on sales. Find the best 2 or 3 webinars on live events on sales, the best webinars on sales. And in 6 months, you can really have a full MBA course on sales.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Learn to entrepreneur. I love that. I'm using that, man. I'll give credit where credit is due, of course, but that's a good one. Entrepreneur is a verb. Yes, sir. Founder of Golden Rules, Jay Berkowitz, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with our folks. We deeply appreciate it and wish you nothing but outstanding and phenomenal success. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ridgely. I appreciate it.